I will not enable your silly old fables. You lie on my God, then I'm flipping some tables. Bible, Quran, makes no difference, I'll beg you. Bro, I don't hate, tryna give you a breakthrough. Cause it one way, Jesus is God. Ay, apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics, God bless us. There's one way, Jesus is God. Apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics. Salam, I'ma see y'all, Jesus is God. You can try to change my mind if you think that's haram. Don't manifest on me, buddy, just be still and be calm. Cause today I'm gonna teach you about the real of Islam. Just keep it yasir and I'll make you a kafir. Hus gon' be kabir, habibi should be shakir. Who's the one true God? Yours cannot compare. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, why I have no fear. Hey, step up and see if all the energy remains. Spend your days in the mental gym and never see no gains. I'm yet to see the evidence to represent your claims. Now I'm starting to think everything you ever said is strange. The scriptures that I'm reading don't need anyone to change. Anything they say so you don't get to run away. Just know that I'ma hold you to whatever you might say. And God is great, I'm ready for you any time of day. I will not enable your silly old fables. You lie on my God, then I'm flipping some tables. Bible, Quran, makes no difference, I'll beg you. Bro, I don't hate, tryna give you a breakthrough. Cause it's one way, Jesus God. Ay, apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics, God bless us. There's one way, Jesus is God. Apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics, God bless. Be not afraid, I'm a man of respect. I love the Lord in his hand I project. That's why your ignorance has no effect, and why you ain't sinking your fangs in my neck. You vipers have wisdom, but you lack the innocence. Islam ain't blissful when you have to live in it. Y'all go against the verse if you ain't feeling it. Make up excuses to add something into it. We not the same, his word is the proof. The facts that you lacking, I'm packing the boot. You panic attacking, I'm slapping with truth. And that's why you have to react like you knew. But we don't have children to marry for one, and we don't have orders to hurt anyone. I know your demons are hurt cause we won, but you can be free if you turn to God's son. Not a neighbor, your silly old fables. You lie on my God, then I'm flipping some tables. Bible, make no difference, I'll beg you. Bro, I don't hate, tryna give you a breakthrough. Cause it's one way, Jesus is God. Ay, apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics, God bless us. There's one way, Jesus is God. Apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics, God bless.
Hey, Salam al-Masih. God bless each and every one of you today. So, there are two reasons why I am going live this early today. So, one is because I forgot to do this live stream last night after the God Logic live stream. I truly did. When I told Logic that I was going to do this, I was at work and I got busy and I forgot exactly what I was doing. I come home, I took a nap. I forgot. I honestly forgot. So I owed you guys a live stream of this review. So that's one reason why I'm doing it this morning. Now, another reason why I'm doing it so early is because today isn't the only live stream that I'm doing. So today I will also be over here at the J and DOC Reloaded YouTube channel with David Wood and Chris from Speaker's Corner. The four of us will be doing a call-in stream. We will be discussing the Islamic dilemma. So that will be at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. So that's another reason why I had to go a little earlier today as well. So I hope to see y'all over on J and DOC Reloaded on that live stream with David Wood, Chris from Speaker's Corner, and of course me. All right, so that's the two reasons why I had to do this live stream so early. Now, the reason why I wanted to do this review is because I was kind of in the mix and I didn't even want to be, right? But I'll explain that in a little bit. But before getting into that, we all know who Nick is, right? Nick is the man that has the YouTube channel called Fearless Truth. If y'all have not subscribed to this man, y'all need to. He's a very intelligent young man. I think he's going to be doing great things when it comes to preaching the gospel. So he's got 14K subscribers right now, but he should be over 100K within a few months, I would assume. You also just need to subscribe. Now, I've already subscribed to his channel, and I'm a member of his channel as well. But of course, if the Lord puts it upon your heart to join membership with this brother, then so be it. Do that. You can do that through the links here. He's got his Patreon, he's got his Cash App, and he's got a GoFundMe there as well. So there are the certain links that on his YouTube channel that you can support his ministry through. Now, why are we going to review, or what about Nick are we going to review? So Nick had a discussion. And in this discussion, he had a discussion with Jake. And in this discussion with Jake, you can see how Nick is all calm and collected. Well, you'll see this throughout this whole discussion. And I think this is and one reason why I wanted to review this is not just because of how badly Nick destroys Jake in his own argument, but how calm he is in doing it. The same as what Logic does, right? It's a calm destruction. So here we go.
Hello.
Hello, weirdos here.
What?
You said that I'm weird.
What a way to start off coming into a live, eh? Hey, the weirdo's here. I'd have been like, hey, man, this is Jake. You called me a weirdo. What's up? Like, there's certain ways that you could have said that, right? I'm with Nick. I'm like, man, that's a weird way to open up, like, to come into a live. You're supposed to be one of the main guys, and you're going to come in all acting all weird. But
I said you guys were just watching my live on another live was weird.
I didn't. I was here in the chat.
I literally got have a screenshot of it.
I didn't. I was here in the chat, he said.
I don't know. I don't know why we're lying, guys. I really.
Nick literally has a screenshot of speaking Muslim. Speaking Muslim. Is there a debate going on in the comment section? Well, here, let me go ahead. Oh, yes. In TikTok, yes, there was a debate going on. In the comment section. A debate on how badly Jake did. Truly, there was Muslims in the chat that were really being like, Jake, no, what are you saying? Like, it was bad. Oh, there's a debate here going on in the comment section. Oh, I'm not even watching this comment section. Just give me 1 second here. I know what to do. I know what to do today. This is going to be the best thing to do today, I bet. Go here. There we go. All right, there we go. If we need a mod, we just received one. I know that Holy is a mod over on the Word Nice channel. And if Holy is good enough to be a moderator on the Word Nice channel, I welcome Holy as a moderator on my channel as well. So welcome to the team, Holy. If things get out of hand, you can take. All right, hey, what up? No problem, Bill. I figured my mods were in here, but hey, sometimes you're not. I know that it's always good to have more. So welcome, Holy. So yeah, so Nick actually literally has a screenshot of speaking Muslim. Literally has a screenshot of speaking Muslim, watching Nick's live with Jake on the panel. And he said he didn't. Man, that's not a good start, Jake. Not a good start.
I really don't know why we're lying. Like, I have screenshots that people sent me.
How am I lying, bro? As soon as I knew you were live, I came over here.
I don't know why we're lying. This is literally them watching my live. Okay, I guess we're just lying, though. Weird.
No, it's not actually. I'm not lying at all. In fact, as soon as you were live and I knew about it, Speaking Muslim said, "Oh, why don't you go to Nick's live?" And I showed up.
And you guys just sat there watching it? Strange he put it on the screen.
How am I sitting there watching it if I'm here?
Oh my gosh, I said you were. Because I have
And
screenshots of
I
it.
literally just explained to you the sequence of events. A screenshot means that it was there for how long?
It was at least a minute.
Okay, so I'm here on your live. You said the Trinity is logical.
Yep.
Okay, so but by what relation do you count gods in the Trinity?
By what relation do I count God?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just count by division.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means we count whether things are divisible.
You count things that are divisible?
Yeah, whether they're divisible.
I want to show something right here. So Jake has a common way of arguing. He's had this common way of arguing for a little while now. But I want everybody to notice something. Nick messes him up in his answer to him. He's not ready for Nick's answer. So watch what happens.
Okay, so but by what relation do you count gods in the Trinity?
By what relation do I count God?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just count by division.
Okay, what does that mean?
As soon as Jake says, what does that mean? You know that he's never actually heard this before. Now Nick's going to have to school him.
It means we count whether things are divisible.
You count things that are divisible
Yeah, whether they're divisible.
or not?
Yeah.
So if they can possibly be divided, then they count as more than one?
If they can be divided, yeah, you can potentially count them as more than one, yeah.
No, but is mere potential for them to be divided, is that sufficient for them to be counted as more than one?
Yeah, I wouldn't see any issue with that.
Okay, and is that for anything or that's only for God?
Yeah, that's going to be in relation to God because other things are going to have things like be universals and particulars in our view. I'm not a nominalist, so.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, in terms of God himself, is that true all across the board?
For God, yeah.
Okay, but it's not for created things.
Right.
And why is that?
Because created things are universals and particulars.
And that's not the case.
Like, it's sad that Nick actually has to repeat himself every question because Jake is supposed to be the philosopher. So he should know what Nick's saying, but he doesn't. This shows you that Jake doesn't know philosophy. He only knows his argument.
For the Trinity.
No.
Okay, so in the Trinity itself, you said that's going to be true. By what relation do you count persons in the Trinity?
Are you just asking in which way? You're just asking by division again?
Again, he goes right back to his original question to see if Nick's going to give a different answer. Why? Because he needs Nick to give a different answer before he can proceed with his argumentation. That's the problem with Jake.
By what relation do you count persons?
Yeah, if you're just asking how
The
I
same
count
way.
them, again, it's still by division.
It's by division. So how many persons are there in the Trinity?
3 persons.
Well, if it's by division, then there would be only one person.
How would there only be one person?
Because you said counting by division means that if they can possibly be divided or separated, then you count them as one in the category that's we're talking about. And the category
we're
of
counting
God.
we're counting them as one God, but not that they're
Yeah,
one person.
And the category of God, you're counting them as one God because they cannot be divided or separated, correct?
Yeah, we're counting them as one God because there's no division, no separation within that. A distinction is going to be different. Distinction doesn't entail separation.
I never said it did I?
Great. So I'm pointing out the fact that persons are distinct, but they're not separated or divided still.
Right. So the persons, which each one of them are God,
Mhm.
they count as one God because they cannot.
And I want to back up here 1 second. And this is why you have to use correct terminology. That the persons are distinct from one another, then they're not separate from one another, to get your way out of a philosophical conundrum. Now, I don't do the philosophical discussions. I'll state that now. I don't. I stay in my lane. I deal with theology. I will deal a little bit when it comes to morality, but that's it. I don't get into the metaphysics and everything else. There's way too much to understand and learn before I would even entertain a discussion like that. I've spent most of my time studying historical documents and reading certain and other material other than philosophical material. So that's why I don't do these discussions, right? This is why we have people that, like Nick, that do these discussions.
Separated, correct?
Yeah, we're counting them as one God because there's no division, no separation within that. A distinction is going to be different. Distinction doesn't entail separation.
I never said it did I?
Great. So I'm pointing out the fact that persons are distinct, but they're not separated or divided still.
Right. So the persons, which each one of them are God, they count as one God because they cannot be possibly separated by time or space, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in like manner, because you said that's true for God across the board, in like manner, that would mean that the persons, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, because they cannot be separated by time or space and are not divisible by time or space, they should count as one person, not three persons.
Well, they would count as one God, one ontology, but they're going to be distinct in their personhood specifically via the relation.
Okay, so by what relation are you counting persons? You can't be counting them by division.
Yeah, we're talking about by the relation of begetting, inspiration.
So you're not counting them by division or separability.
Yes, you can still count them by division and still entail distinctions. You just can't entail division or separation.
And if they're not divided or separated, then that, or cannot possibly be divided or separated, that means they would count as one instead of three.
It would count as one if there's also no distinctions there. But there can be a distinction that's not a separation.
Right. And so in the same way in which in the category of God, there is a distinction but no separation.
Do you notice that Jake is agreeing with everything that Nick is saying? Nick's just sitting there all nice and calm, just addressing him, saying the same thing over and over and over again. Jake agreeing with him and then asking him the same question.
They would count as three gods.
Well, if there's multiple gods, yeah, if there's a distinction in godhood, then yeah, but there's no distinction in godhood.
No, because before you just said that they're not separated by time or space. That's what it means to count by division. And I'm saying if that is sufficient for counting them as one thing instead of multiple or more than one, then in like manner, if you applied it consistently across the board, they would have to count as one person instead of three.
Yeah, that would be if and only if there's not a distinction in personhood itself. Again, if there was a distinction in godhood, it would make there multiple gods, but the distinction in personhood makes it okay to say there's multiple persons, even with counting by division.
No, because counting by division means, as you said earlier, that they can only be counted as more than one in the category under examination if they are possibly divided or separated. But the persons are not possibly divided or separated.
Yeah, you can only count them as more than one in that ontology that you're speaking about if it's going to be a separation or division. But you can still count the distinction itself as personhood.
Say the last part again.
Count the still count the distinction in personhood as long as it's just a distinction and it's not a separation or a division.
Yeah, but if it's not a separation or division, then they can't count as more than one.
They can count as more than one, even if there's a distinction. At least there just has to be a distinction in the personhood. If there's a distinction in something underlying, like a subcategory, then no. But if there's a distinction in the primary category, then there can be.
What do you mean by that distinction between primary and secondary category?
Yeah, if there's a subcategory, right? And let's say for essence, for example, if there's a subcategory of distinction, like between the attributes, for example, well, then that's not going to make for multiple gods. There would have to be a distinction in godhood or in ontology. So in the primary category of personhood, as long as there's a distinction in the primary category itself, like relation, then it's going to be a distinction. If there's a category in the if there's a distinction in the subcategory, like maybe something like the attributes of the personhood, then it's not going to account for a distinction there.
Okay, I don't know if you're really understanding the point that I'm trying to raise or the objection I'm raising. I'm saying to you that if not being divided by time or space is sufficient, it's not just necessary, but is sufficient for counting things as one rather than multiple, then by that same line of counting and by that same method of counting, if the persons cannot possibly be separated by time or space, then they would count as one person. Because
if and only if there's not a distinction in the primary category.
No, but then that means you're counting them by identity.
No, it just means that we're counting them in the primary category distinction itself.
Yeah, and distinction or counting them by distinction is counting by identity. That's what it means.
You have to prove that counting by distinction can only be counted by identity.
Oh my God, bro. What do you...
Right there, Jake knew he had lost the discussion. Every time logic tells you about that nervous laugh, I want everybody to hear this nervous laugh that we about to hear right here.
Counting by identity. That's what it means.
You have to prove that counting by distinction can only be counted by identity.
Oh my God, bro. What do you think it means to count by identity?
Yeah, counting by identity, just counting multiple things. For example, if you have...
So again, he's going to explain something here.
Let's see, if you have like a bagel on the table, right? Like a good example that David Leisman gives, if you have a bagel on the table and you cut the bagel in half, according to identity, that would be 2 bagels now.
Oh man. So when I'm talking about identity, I'm talking about Leibniz's law. That's what I'm talking about in this context. I'm talking about counting by discernibility. If you count things as more than one, so long as they're not identical to each other, i.e., they're discernible from one another.
So what kind of identity there?
Meaning that not everything that's true of one is true of the other, or they don't share all of the same properties.
So absolute identity, right?
Yeah.
So why can you only count that then by identity? And then if there's a distinction, you can't count that by division. What's the symmetry breaker?
No, I don't.
That's my question. What's the symmetry breaker?
I don't think you're understanding the point, because you just said before that you don't see a difference, or you're saying that there is a difference between counting by discernibility or identity. No, they're the same thing in this case.
Yeah, I'm just asking you what's a symmetry breaker, because you said you can't then count by
Symmetry
division.
breaker for what?
You said that you would have to count by identity. If there's a distinction, you can't count by division then. So I said I want you to show me the symmetry breaker. So you admit we can't count by division if there's a distinction.
No, that's not what I said.
Can we count by division if there's a distinction?
If you count by division, then that would entail that there's only one person in the Trinity.
How does that entail that if there's a primary distinction?
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning when you defined what counting by division is. You want to define it again?
I want you to tell me why, if there's a primary distinction, that it would not entail there's multiple persons, even with counting by division.
Because counting by division means that if they are not possibly separated by time or space, then that is sufficient in itself to count them as one rather than more than one.
Yeah, that is able to count them as one in one way. So we do count them as one in one way in their ontology, but it does not mean you cannot count them as more than one in another way. It does, for example, if you count a bagel by division, again, as David Leisman writes in his paper, that does not mean then that you cannot attribute different distinctions and count more than one in any way in the bagel. I can say there's one bagel, right? And this is not an analogy for the Trinity, just so you all know. This is talking about counting by division. But then you...
So again, I'm going to repeat this because Jake thought that it would have been funny to say that Jake was comparing his God to a bagel. So let's just go back and let's see if that's what Nick is actually saying here.
Wiseman writes in his paper. That does not mean then that you cannot attribute different distinctions and count more than one in any way in the bagel. I can say there's one bagel, right? And this is not an analogy for the Trinity, just so y'all know. This is talking about counting by division. But then you have multiple raisins. You can still count multiple raisins in the bagel, for instance. So this is just showing that even counting by division, you can still count distinctions within things.
Yeah, but when you count by distinction within things, then you're counting by a different relation. You're counting by discernibility in that case.
Yeah, I still think, though, that that fits just fine in line with counting by division, that you can still count distinctions within division. If you're saying we can't
but you're
then
just
count
counting two
distinctions by
different ways.
division, if you're saying we can't then count by distinction within division, then you're going to have to provide me the symmetry breaker as to why we can't.
No, I don't think you're understanding the point. I didn't say that there's a contradiction in the two methods of counting.
All right, so there is no contradiction in the two methods of counting. So what are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? Notice how Nick has had to explain the same thing 5 times to Jake, and he still doesn't understand it. And he still won't answer the question. Why can't he?
I said that they're just two different ways of counting. That's the point.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
you count,
yeah. So
when
so
you're
my point is,
counting by
can we count these
discernibility,
things by division?
when you're counting by discernibility or identity, that's one thing. When you count by division, that's another thing. They're not the same counting method.
Yeah, the point is, though, is I'm saying you can still count multiple indivisible things by division and still get to multiple persons. That's the point. There's no issue with
Okay,
that.
repeat that one more time. Go ahead.
You can still count multiple indivisible things by division, get distinctions, and count multiple persons, as long as it's not divisible within reality or separated within reality.
Okay, so then it's not true that counting by division means that if two things are indivisible and inseparable from one another, then they necessarily are going to count as one in every sense.
Not in every sense, no. It doesn't mean they're going to count as one in every sense. No, where'd you get that from?
Because if they're indivisible and inseparable from one another in every sense, then that would mean that they would count as one in every sense.
Yeah, I know. I don't think that them being indivisible doesn't mean there's distinction. No distinctions entailed. There can be distinctions that aren't divisible distinctions.
Oh, man. I know that there can be a distinction without separation or division. I believe that too. That's not the point. That means that when you're counting them in that case as more than one thing, even though they cannot possibly be separated or divided, but they are distinct, meaning that they're not identical, then in that case, when you count them as more than one, you are counting by identity, not by division.
Yeah, again, my whole point is, though, is that when we're talking about counting by division itself, we can still conclude that there are distinctions that we can count within that division itself, and the two things itself won't be divisible, like attributes, for instance, or like let's say, for instance, the persons.
Attributes are divine persons.
What?
The attributes or divine persons.
Yeah, so we can say that the persons and their attributes, the relations to one another, is what distinguishes them. That's going to be a primary distinction that we can still count within counting by division.
But when you count them as more than one person and you count them as more than one attribute, by what relation are you counting them as more than one?
Yet we're still counting them within counting by division.
How? How are you counting
Because
How
of
are
the
you counting them
primary
by
distinction.
division? Because of the primary distinction. What does
Yes.
that mean?
Right, I already explained to you what primary distinction is. Dude, primary distinction is going to be within the subject itself, within the subject at hand.
Yeah.
So
within
not
the
going to be in a subcategory of that. So not going to be like within an attribute, but going to be within the actual thing itself.
Where is the attribute if it's not in the thing itself?
No, I'm saying the attribute, there's primary and secondary ones. So for example, if we're talking about the essence or we're talking about some sort of essential property, that's going to be primary. If we're talking about something external to the thing, that's going to be secondary.
Yeah, but in the case of the persons, we're not talking about something external. We're talking about something within them.
Which is why it's primary.
Exactly.
So the primary distinction is what distinguishes them as multiple persons.
Right. And that
This is hilarious. He's agreeing with Nick and like, man, Islam. Is this the best you got? Honestly. Is this truly the best you have, Islam?
Distinction, because you're counting them as distinction, you are counting them by identity, by the fact that they are distinct from one another.
You're
You're
don't
not
think
counting
counting
that-
distinct things is necessarily counting by identity. You have to prove, you have to justify that.
Yes. Okay. So let me read for you from Bo Branson, who explicitly explains this. Okay. 1 second here. All right.
Jake's gonna go to
So
his
Branson
buddy Bo.
says, and this is a quote, today we count Fs by 1, logical subjects that are 2, discernible, keyword, discernible from, or at least not identical to. That's what it means. Discernible and not identical to is the same in this context with one another and are both F. That is, if X and Y differ in any way and are both F-ish, we count them as 2 Fs. So in this context, when we say counting by identity or counting by discernibility, they're synonymous with each other. It means the same thing. Branson
where,
is
where did he say though that that is the only way to count distinctions? You said that that's the only way to count distinctions. I want to know where you got that from.
What do you mean that's the only way to count distinctions?
If you count multiple distinct things, the only way to do that is by identity. I'm saying, where are you getting that from?
No, I'm saying it's assumed by the fact that they're not identical. That's the relation you're counting to that.
So is that the only way to count distinct things by identity?
No, you can count distinct things by other relations so long as you provide a criteria for that. But your criteria for counting by division is not fulfilled in the case of persons or attributes, because they can only be counted as multiple persons or multiple attributes if and only if they are possibly separated or divided from one another, which they're not. Therefore, that's not fulfilled, so you cannot count them as more than one person or attribute in the case of counting by division.
No, we wouldn't be able to count them as multiple ontologies, because when we say that they're not separated or not divisible, then we're talking about ontology there. But when we then speak about the fact that they are distinct within relation, is going to be talking about the fact that they're distinct in personhood. So we can entail a distinction in personhood, but what we can't do in counting by division here is talking about a distinction within ontology.
Are the persons distinct in ontology?
No, what? That's my point.
So the persons are not ontologically distinct.
There is where the Muslim argument crumbles right there. That's where the Muslim argument crumbles right there. He truly doesn't know what the Christian view is.
No.
Okay, in what way are they distinct?
Relationally?
Okay, and is the relation ontological?
No, it's not an ontological relation. If you
What
mean
is
that,
it?
if you mean it's a difference in ontology,
Is,
It's a
is it
personal
constitute? Is,
Notice he's trying to get Nick to agree to a difference in ontology. A difference in ontology would mean that there are multiple gods. That's why there's not a difference or distinction in ontology.
is it constitutive of the persons?
what do you mean by that?
Are relations things that exist in between entities, or are they something that are possessed by the entities?
Do you mean by in between? Do you mean that separating them ontologically? I don't know what you mean by in between entities.
Okay, do you know what a relation is?
Yes. I
What
know
is a relation? What is a relation in your view?
Yes, a relation is going to be some sort of connection between two or more things.
Okay, do the persons possess those relational properties?
Yes.
Are they ontological?
They're not a different ontology. You can say that they are identical to the ontology of the essence.
No,
They're not a different ontology.
Are relational properties ontological? Are they real?
Yeah, they're of the ontology, yeah.
Okay, so then that goes back to the point when you just
So
said
it's
that
still
they're
one
not,
ontology.
they're not ontologically different. They are, because the persons
No.
each
Oh my-
possess the persons each possess
I just said they're the
type of-
same ontology, dude.
okay. So what personal property does the Father have that the Son doesn't have, and vice versa?
The fact that he begets the Son.
Okay, and what does the Son possess that the Father doesn't?
The fact of being begotten.
Okay, and are those real properties that each?
Oh, I just had to stop. So what's the Father have? Begetting the Son. And then he paused. He's like, so what distinction would the Son have from the Father? Nick's like, stupid. Being begetting? Yeah, that was a good one.
One possesses that the other doesn't.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so is a property ontological?
It can subsist in ontology. It itself is not ontological.
A property is not ontological.
No, properties aren't.
This is where Jake really messed up. Saying that properties or attributes are ontological. This is where the conversation it's been going really bad for Jake. It's been going real bad for Jake. But at this part of the discussion, Muslims in the chat started going insane. You'll see why.
Just necessarily ontological. Wait,
What are they?
you think properties are all ontological?
What are they?
Do you think that Allah has 99 different ontologies?
I think that he has well, we don't say 99, those are referring to the names, but I believe that Allah's attributes are real, they're ontological, yes.
So does
His attributes are ontological.
God have a bunch of different ontologies?
God has multiple real distinct attributes.
Are they
Now,
different
back to my
ontologies?
point. They're not the same.
Are they different ontologies? Well, they're not the same.
So
Yeah.
God has more than one ontology?
God has multiple distinct real attributes. Don't you believe that?
God of Islam has multiple ontologies, y'all.
Wait, I'm asking you, I want to be clear. Do you think God has multiple ontologies?
When you say ontologies, what do you mean by that?
This
Man, what we doing here? What we doing here, man? What we doing here? They've been talking about ontology for the last 20 minutes. All of a sudden, Jake gets amnesia and doesn't know what ontology means anymore. He all of a sudden gets amnesia and doesn't know what ontology means anymore. Let's back that up just 1 second here.
Real attributes. Don't you believe that?
Wait, I'm asking you, I want to be clear. Do you think God has multiple ontologies?
When you say ontologies, what do you mean by that?
The same way you've been. So now suddenly you don't know what
I just
ontology
explained it to
means?
you. No, because I
The
explained it to
same
you.
way you've been using it this
I
whole time.
explained
Suddenly
it-
you don't know what
I
it means?
explained it. No, I explained it to you 3 times, but now you're asking me the same question. I believe ontological means it has a reality.
Okay.
It has an actual reality. It's not something
Wow.
conceptual that's merely in the mind.
Great. Does God have
so yes,
multiple ontologies?
God has multiple real attributes that are not distinct merely in mind alone. They are ontologically distinct.
So I
They
just want to
are
be clear.
really distinct from each
So I
other.
just want to be clear. God has, I just want to make sure I'm not strawmanning you. God has multiple ontologies, right? According to you.
Literally, all through the comment, Muslims are saying no, no, no.
In that case, all ontology means that God has multiple real distinct attributes. Yes, he does.
And what are they?
And
What's
you
the type
believe
of?
the
What's the
same thing,
distinction
don't
between
you?
them? Wait, what's the distinction between them?
They're not identical.
What type of distinction, though?
They're discernible from one another.
Great,
They are really
great. That doesn't tell me the
distinct.
type of distinction.
Yes, it does. It tells you they're really distinct, meaning they're not identical, but they're indivisible and separable from each other.
Great, but what kind of distinction though? There's multiple kinds. Are you familiar with the different kinds of distinction?
Are you listening? I just told you it's a real distinction.
How are you using real? Are you using the scholastic term of real, or are you using more of an Eastern real?
At this point, Nick already knows that he knows more about philosophy than Jake will ever. Right now, it's time that Nick has taken Jake to school and saying, I am your dad right now. Nick is basically being Jake's dad for the rest of this discussion. Like it was said in the chat. This discussion right here is a career-ending discussion. It truly is. I don't think Jake can come back from this. I truly don't.
My God. Now we're moving on to discussing Allah's attributes, which I, by the way, have no problem with
Now comes the gaslighting.
doing whatsoever.
Great.
But
So-
this is moving away. Hold on a second. This is moving away from the discussion at hand.
It's called a
which is
consistency
you
argument.
claim- no, yeah, and I am consistent. I count.
Okay,
I
so-
count the attributes.
So I want to know.
The attributes. Hold on a second. I count the attributes. I count the attributes. I count everything within God. I count by identity. You don't do that. You're
Great.
counting gods by division or separability. And then when it comes to persons or attributes, you're counting them by identity or discernibility.
Great.
That's
I just want to know though. You haven't answered. I just want to know when you say
I have
real,
answered
are
you
you? No,
several
you have. I want to
times.
know. Are you using the scholastic term or are you using the Eastern term of real?
Am I using the scholastic term of real?
Yes. Are you using scholastic real distinction or Eastern real distinction?
He doesn't know.
What's the relevant difference?
You don't know the difference between a scholastic distinction and a Eastern? Do you know what a
No.
scholastic real distinction is?
Dude, I have it right in front of me. I can literally read it for you.
Do you
Right
know what a
out-
scholastic real distinction is?
Right?
Dude?
Yes, I do. And I can literally read it from you, literally right out of the dictionary of scholastic philosophy, which I have right in front of me.
Great. So
But
are you using a
totally-
scholastic
you are
real distinction, or
totally-
it should be easy
You
then?
are totally moving away.
I'm glad you looked up
from
the dictionary.
subject.
I'm glad you looked up the dictionary. I'm asking you a question, okay? Are you
Nick,
using the scholastic or the
It's
Eastern?
obvious that you're moving away from the discussion.
I
of the
literally
Trinity.
let you. I let you
Because-
talk about it for 20 minutes, and I ask you one question, and suddenly
Yeah.
you don't like it.
No.
Let's
It's
talk
because
about it.
You've been.
It's
getting
just an
bait for
open
the past
conversation,
half hour,
dude. It's an
You
open
literally
conversation,
just
dude.
said- Yeah, exactly.
So I
It's
want you
open
to answer the
conversation,
question.
Which I showed up here, by the way, because you guys were cowering on and on all day, going back and forth.
Cowering. I emailed you 10 minutes after you emailed me, and you haven't emailed me back yet. What are you talking about, dude?
Dude, you guys were literally on a live stream today.
And I told
Going
you, and I
through
told
other
Speaking to tell you to
people,
come through, and you
going-
didn't.
Yeah, because I was busy. You think I
Okay,
just
so now who's
come on your
cowering? So who's
command?
cowering? If I'm
No,
in the
you
live,
guys were the
and
ones
if
that
I'm in a
were
live
on
in front of
and on
500
talking
people
about it.
saying get Jake, and he don't come, how am I the one cowering?
You're not getting the point. You guys were going on and on talking about it. That's the point. I came here
Because you
I'm
wouldn't
not
come,
ready-
or you wouldn't
I'm not
email me
ready-
back. So I had to
I
talk
wouldn't
to your
email you
minions because you wouldn't email me back.
No, because we were going through a third party who was supposed to be hosting the discussion, which I have no control over.
You
Who's
could have
another
just
Christian
emailed me
person.
back, dude.
Anyway, back to the point.
Anyway,
So now this is the part of the discussion or the part of the live stream where I'm going to start presenting some of the conversation that I had with a Muslim named Sid. And it was about the... Oh, here, let me go ahead and get that up here. All right. So we see that now, right? There we go. So I'm talking with a Muslim named Sid. He said, and this is the start of the discussion, y'all. This is him trying to get me to message Nick and everything about Darren and everything. He's like, what's up with your guy, Nick? Even straight tweet from Jake himself isn't sufficient for you guys. I said, Darren asked me for more proofs that we ain't playing you guys. So Jake posted tweet confirming it. You guys still asking for more. That's bad, man. Can't defend the Trinity in a Christian panel. You see my response to him. Tell Jake to email Nick. If he wants a debate, they don't need middlemen. First message, straight off the hop. Hey, just tell your man to email him. That's all he's got to do. What does Sid say? It's all right, bro. We get it. I was like, so people are running when all Nick is asking for is Jake to email him so they can set it up instead of speaking through others. It would literally take 5 minutes to send an email. Let's go to the next one here. It says here, check X, bro. He could just agree and come to Darren's live. But same as last time with Logic and Libby, always something to run from the debate. I said, did he even tag Nick in X? So when Jake put this message on X, did he even tag Nick? He's like, it won't matter to mention his name, though. What? So he didn't even tag Nick in this comment in X. And you think that we're supposed to follow him and see all this? Man. And then I said, Libiano is running from Logic like he did last time. We have the emails. Y'all remember the expose that Life did. They got the emails between the Orthodox Muslim and Life. The discussion was there. They have it. So Sid says, because Darren asked for proofs soon, we spoke to Jake. He put a tweet there to confirm we ain't playing. Then you guys still asking for more. You can't make this up. And I said, it's a simple email. That's all. Notice, all I keep saying is all he has to do is email Nick. I'm not saying that I'm going to message Nick. I'm not going to be the middleman. I'm just telling them. Email Nick. That's it. And then he says he doesn't want to. And I said, well, then he doesn't really want to debate him then. If he doesn't want to email Nick, then he doesn't want to debate him, plain and simple. And then he said, well, Nick could just agree and come to Darren's live. And I said, Nick doesn't want to go through others. So, like, hello. And then he said, I mean, they're today watching the big deal, eh? We will be at Darren's live Saturday. Anyone want to smoke? Feel free to do so. I said, we don't care if Jake debates. I said, Logic cooked. Well, I put himself, but him. And y'all trying to get him another debate to save face. If he wants to debate Nick, he can. If he wants to debate Nick, he can email him. If not, I guess Jake can just take the L that he was given. So what I believe is what they wanted to do is to get Jake to get another debate after Logic, because he took such a bad L from Logic that he wanted to get a W to erase that loss, right? So when I said himself, I corrected, I put him underneath. And then he said, bruh, Jake is well known, and he's willing to come to debate him at Darren's live, no issue. Jake is very humble, of course. You guys acting like he's Christian, whatever. Just come defend your Trinity like you do every day on TikTok. What's the big deal? He was in Darren's live today watching. I said, you still don't get it. Jake is a nobody to us. We don't care. If he wants to debate, he can email like everyone else. And then up above, when I corrected him and everything, I said, what about our debate? And this is where he responds, I'll debate you soon, your cake, whatever. And then I said, you seem to think that Jake is some superstar. He isn't. We've cooked him for years on Clubhouse and YouTube before TikTok. If Jake truly wants a piece of Nick, he would just join Nick's live. But he won't. And then he said, Jake's extremely good, especially on the LPT, never gets cooked, whatever. I said, we've known Jake for over 7 years, whatever. And he says he's humble. I said, you're hilarious. If Jake can tweet, he can email. Right? So if the guy can put a tweet on X, then he can email Nick. We really don't care. Either way. And then I said, you're hilarious. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. And then I said, let me know when you're not too scared to debate. It's only been almost 2 months since we were supposed to. And he said, will do. And then he said, Jake just emailed him. No more excuses now. You're right. No more excuses now, Sid, because your boy Jake done took the L of his lifetime against Nick in this discussion. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to put the evidence out there on my channel that I didn't offer to be the middleman between Nick and Jake. I constantly, over and over and over again, repeatedly told Sid to tell Jake to email Nick directly. I believe I said that at least 7 times in that discussion. At least. So, I don't want no Muslim out there trying to say that I was in there trying to set up no debate with Nick and Jake. My evidence is out there. I'm clear. I keep my receipts. But let's get back into the Cook Fest.
Please, I want you to answer the question.
You haven't answered the question.
I've been
You've
answering your
running
questions for
circles.
20 minutes now, dude. I just
And
wanted you
you've
to
been
answer if it was
literally-
Scholastic or
you've
Eastern.
literally been running in circles for the past 30 minutes.
I've been
without even
answering
realizing
all
it.
your
You
questions,
don't
dude.
understand the
This
point.
is an open discussion. I don't know when it comes to Islam, y'all just don't want to talk about it for some reason. So what
because
kind of distinction is
hold on
it?
a second. The question is, Christianity and the Trinity are logical.
Oh my God.
Prove me wrong.
Yes,
So
and
that's
it's an
what I came
open
up here to
discussion, and
discuss.
we talked about
Now,
it
here's the thing.
for
Here's the
20
thing.
minutes.
If you want to have a discussion on Islam, then you can come on my panel and talk to me about it. I
We're
have
talking
no
about
problem
both
with that
right now.
whatsoever.
Let's critique each
No,
other's
because
views.
you
We're talking
haven't-
about both.
You haven't even gotten past the fundamental step.
We literally already talked
You
about it.
haven't-
So,
you haven't. You just went through telling me that properties are not ontological.
oh my God. So we're
That's what
talking
you
about
just
that. So
said.
that's what great. So we're
In the
talking
case-
about that.
And in the case of the Trinity, the personal properties or the hypostatic properties that they possess, they are ontological.
Okay, great. We're talking about that. So I
Yeah,
asked you,
so
then
if
when you
they
said that they're
are
really distinct,
ontological,
are
if
you
they
using the
are
Scholastic or the
ontological,
Eastern
if the
term?
If the personal properties or the hypostatic properties are ontological, therefore that is what is accounting for them being distinct or counting as more than one person.
Great, and
You're
you-
not counting them by
gosh.
division.
Great,
because
and you
the
say that
personal
they're
properties-
ontologically really
the
distinct.
personal properties
Are you? I want
not
to understand
divisible or
what you're
separable
saying.
from each other.
You said really distinct. I want you to understand what you're saying. Are you saying they're
What
Scholastic?
are
Are you
really-
using the
what are-
Scholastic term or the Eastern
what-
term?
What are really distinct?
The attributes.
In your understanding?
No,
or
in
not?
yours. Are you using the Scholastic term of real or are you using the Eastern term?
I'm using the term of real in the sense that they are not identical but cannot be separated.
Great. So great. That all that tells me is that they're distinct in some way. I'm asking, are you using the because you already said you know it, so it should be easy. Are you talking about the Scholastic or the Eastern side of real?
This is what happens when you don't know an answer, y'all.
No, I didn't say that. I said to you.
It's a question. I didn't say you said anything. I asked you a question.
I said to you
Oh,
by
we gotta
real
back that up
distinction.
again.
And I
Gotta back that up again.
Are you using the because you already said you know it, so it should be easy. Are you talking about the Scholastic or the Eastern side of real?
No, I didn't say that. I said to you.
It's a question. I didn't say you said anything. I asked you a question.
I said to you by real distinction, and I just explained it very clearly to you. By
Dude.
real distinction, I mean that they are not identical. They are discernible from one another. However, they are not separated.
Great. All that
It's
means
not
is there's a
possibly
distinction.
separate.
All that means is a distinction. But there's like 10 different types of distinctions that could be, which is why I'm asking, are you using the Scholastic term of a real distinction or an
Which one is
Eastern?
relevant? How is that relevant to responding to the LPT? You
Bro,
explain
it's
that.
relevant because it's a consistency argument. So I'm asking
And
you
you're not
again.
explaining how it's how am I being inconsistent?
bro.
How am I being inconsistent with counting the person? With counting the persons and the attributes and gods in the Trinity by distinction as more than one. And in the case, hold on a second. And in the case of my understanding of God, as counting the attributes as more than one. How is that inconsistent?
I'm showing you, if you would tell me so I don't straw man you, what type of real distinction you're using. Are you using Scholastic or Eastern?
Neither.
So which kind?
I already explained to you what I'm using. I said
Neither.
that the attributes are distinct from one another. They're not identical. They're discernible from one another, but cannot be separated by time or space.
So then why is it not a formal distinction?
Formal distinction, that's a scotistic term.
Yeah, why is it not a formal distinction?
I didn't say that it was or it wasn't. I defined for you what it is.
So is it
I
real?
defined for you what it is, because unlike you, I'm not concerned with the wording. I'm
Dude,
concerned
bro,
with the
bro, I don't
content.
even feel like
I'm
you know
concerned
these.
with the-
Do you know
I'm
what's
concerned with the
Bro,
I'm
can you-
concerned with the content of what you're saying, and I'm also concerned with the consistency of the content of what I'm saying.
Dude, I'm be honest, I don't think you know what you're talking about. What's the difference between a real and a formal distinction?
Oh my God.
Come on, you don't need a nervous laugh. What's the difference?
Exactly. This again. This is not an answer, y'all. This is a nervous laugh.
Dude, I'm be honest, I don't think you know what you're talking about. What's the difference between a real and a formal distinction?
Oh my God.
Come on, you don't need a nervous laugh. What's the difference?
You think that I don't know the difference?
Answer the
between
question.
A real and formal distinction.
Answer the
I know
question.
what the difference is.
Then answer the question.
I believe that.
Then answer the question instead of trying to hurry up and look it up.
I'm not. I'm answering you. If you would shut up for a
Great,
second.
answer the question. Difference
I'm
between real and
answering
formal.
you that I believe that a formal distinction is a type of real distinction.
So what's the difference?
The difference, it depends on whose definition you're looking at.
What is the difference
The
between a real and
SCOTUS and
formal?
the SCOTUS and the Thomist don't agree about this. That's the whole point.
Okay, what's the difference between the SCOTUS formal distinction? So we'll just pick one. I'll pick a random. What's the difference between a SCOTUS formal distinction and a real distinction?
The SCOTUS formal distinction is basically equivalent to what I just said, that two things are not identical, they're discernible from one another, even if they can't be separated by time or space.
So there's no distinction between a real and formal distinction in the SCOTUS view?
I didn't say that. You asked me what the formal distinction is, and I just defined it for you.
What is the difference between it's very I don't know why you can't answer. What's the
I
difference
answered the
between a
question. How
real
stupid are you? You're not
You
even
haven't. What's the
I
distinction
answered you
between
three
what's the
times already.
difference
What you
between
keep
a real
going-
distinction?
You keep going to asking me about what
Because
is
you
the
can't
difference
answer. This is crazy.
I did.
What's the
Hey,
difference
Nick,
between
how
a
about-
real
how about you be
distinction
quiet for
and
a
a
second and
formal
listen?
distinction?
I just told you what it is.
What is it then?
I just told you that a formal distinction is what I just described, that a distinction, meaning it's discernible or not identical, but cannot be separated.
That's the same thing you
what
defined a real distinction as. Is it not?
Oh boy.
Is that
There we
not the
go.
same thing you just
Did you
described a real
not
distinction
hear
as?
me? Hey, did you not hear me? Where I said that I believe my personal position is that a formal distinction is a type of real distinction? Did you clock
You
that?
said a type. That means there's a difference, no?
Yeah, there are differences.
So tell me the difference.
There's a real distinction. How I don't understand.
This is crazy. Tell me the difference.
I don't understand how dumb you actually are.
Bro,
You
just
really
tell
are.
me the difference.
Man, no, Nick, you doing this man bad now, Nick. You doing this man bad now. Oh man, we got to back this up just 1 second here.
My personal position is that a formal distinction is a type of real distinction. Did you clock
You
that?
said a type. That means there's a difference, no?
Yeah, there are differences.
So tell me the difference.
Yes, there are differences. So tell us the differences is the question we've been asking for the last 2 minutes.
There's a real distinction. How I don't understand.
This is crazy. Tell me.
Okay, there's a real distinction. Man, Jake, this is a career-ending debate discussion for you, man. It's time for you to give up. Right here is where you gave up on the discussion totally, right here.
Is that a formal distinction is a type of real distinction? Did you clock
You
that?
said a type. That means there's a difference, no?
Yeah, there are differences.
So tell me the difference.
There's a real distinction. How I don't understand.
This is crazy. Tell me the difference.
I don't understand how dumb you actually are.
Bro,
You
just
really
tell
are-
me the difference.
You really are a complete moron.
All right, bro.
Another type of real distinction
Dude,
is,
thanks for coming on, bro. Is that your best? Is that your best hitter, Islam? Bro, is that y'all's best hitter? Oh my God. That's who y'all was begging for me to debate? Is that who y'all was begging for me to debate?
And for any Muslim that does not say they've been begging Nick for this debate, I showed the receipts that even Sid wanted me to get Nick to debate him, to debate Jake. I showed the receipts.
Is that who y'all were begging for me to debate, saying I was running from? A guy who doesn't know the dang difference between a real and a formal distinction, a guy who said his God has multiple ontologies. That's who y'all begging me to debate. Waste of my time over here saying I'm the A side. I'm the A side. Yo, I don't need to email him back. I'll get my little minions. I'm the A side. You can come to my live. Who are you? You don't know nothing, dude. Studying Islam for 15 years for what? Get out of here, bruh. Studying Islam for 15 years for what, dude?
Amen, Nick. Amen. Jake, you've been studying Islam for 15 years for what? To not know the difference between a real and formal distinction. This is a career-ending discussion for Jake. It truly is. It truly is. Again, I just want to do this one more time. Let me just share the screen one more time. Minimize this now. Go back over here. Again, this is Fearless Truth. Our man Nick, he was on God Logic's channel yesterday. I'm a member on his channel. Again, if the Lord puts it upon your heart to join ministry with this man, he's got his Patreon link. He's got the Cash App link and the GoFundMe link to be able to support his ministry. So if the Lord does place it upon your heart to be able to do that, then the links are there and available for you to do that for this young man. He is definitely, I believe, going to be a big force in apologetics when it comes to the philosophical discussions when it comes to God. So normally, if a Muslim comes on my platform and they start talking about philosophy, I'll be like, just go to Nick's live. That's what Nick does, right? So I'll refer them to Nick every time. You want to talk theology? I've got that all day, every day with you. You want to talk philosophical arguments, then go and talk to somebody that knows those philosophical arguments in and out. Because I would look worse than Jake. And I ain't going to get clipped by no Muslim like that. Like, Jake looked like that was me debating Nick. Like, I know nothing about... Well, I know a little bit about philosophy. I can't say I know nothing, but I know a little bit. But it shows the depth of knowledge that one must have. Like every question that Nick asked Jake, he couldn't answer. And anybody, if you go over to Nick's channel and watch this, every question that Jake asked Nick, he answered. Now, Jake may not have liked his answer, but he answered his question. The same isn't true when it comes to the other side. But we're saying that, y'all, I got to get ready. We got 4 hours before I go live with Jay and DOC on Jay and DOC Reloaded. We will be with Chris from Speaker's Corner and David Wood. That's right, the Deliminator. So, let's get it, y'all. Hey, and we're saying that, Salam al-Masih, y'all. And let me hit you with this last song to get us out of here.
I will not enable your silly old fables. lie on my God, then I'm flipping some tables. Bible, Quran, makes no difference, I'll beg you. Bro, I don't hate, tryna give you a breakthrough. Cause it one way, Jesus is God. Ay, apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics, God bless us. There's one way, Jesus is God. Apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics.
Salam, Mama, see y'all, Jesus is God. You can try to change my mind if you think that's a rhyme. Don't manifest on me, buddy, just be still and be calm. Cause today I'm gonna teach you about the real of Islam. Just keep it your seer and I'll make you a kafir. Hus gon' be Kabir, Habibi should be Shakir. Who's the one true God? Yours cannot compare. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, why I have no fear. Hey, step up and see if all the energy remains. Spend your days in the mental gym and never see no gains. I'm yet to see the evidence to represent your claims. Now I'm starting to think everything you ever said is strange. The scriptures that I'm reading don't need anyone to change. Anything they say so you don't get to run away. Just know that I'ma hold you to whatever you might say. And God is great, I'm ready for you any time of day.
I will not enable your silly old fables. You lie on my God, then I'm flipping some tables. Bible, Quran, makes no difference, I'll bake you. Bro, I don't hate, tryna give you a breakthrough. Cause it's one way, Jesus God. Ay, apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics, God bless us. There's one way, Jesus is God. Apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics, God bless us.